Everything you've been told about death is wrong. It's not an ending, not a void, and not a mystery left to faith or speculation. For over 1,000 years, hidden within a forbidden manuscript lies a roadmap, a detailed account of what happens in the first 49 days after death. This manuscript, known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, was once reserved only for the most enlightened minds, those capable of facing the truth without fear. It reveals that death is not the final breath, but the beginning of a test that determines whether you break free from the cycle of life and death or return to it unknowing. Most souls fail this test, not because they are unworthy, but because they are unaware. They don't recognize what's happening. They don't see the illusions. They don't realize that everything they experience after death, every sight, every sound, every feeling, is a projection of their own mind. And by the time they do realize it, it's already too late. This is why awareness is everything. This is why preparation matters. Because after death, your consciousness doesn't stop. It creates. It creates heaven. It creates hell. It creates the illusion of both. And if you are not conscious in life, you will not be conscious in death. That is the true danger, not death itself, but the blindness that follows. After death, you don't vanish. You don't sleep. Something far more profound happens. Your mind, untethered from the physical body, becomes the architect of your next reality. It paints the space around you with memories, emotions, fears, and desires. And in that space, a test begins. The test isn't given by gods or angels. It is self-made, self-fueled. It is born from how you lived, how you thought, how you reacted. Everything you feared in life becomes a vision. Everything you loved becomes a temptation. You are not judged. You are revealed. And here lies the greatest tragedy. Most souls don't even know they've died. They wander, cling, reach out to the world they once knew, hoping someone will hear them, but no one responds. And so they fall deeper into the dream, mistaking illusion for truth. They see loved ones, familiar places, spiritual figures. But all of it, every bit of it, is just the mind trying to make sense of the unfamiliar. If they only knew, in that very moment, they had a choice to wake up or to forget again. The truth is harsh, but necessary. If you are not conscious in life, you will not be conscious in death. This is the core teaching of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. What happens after you die is entirely shaped by the clarity you carry now. Your fears follow you. Your attachments follow you. And unless you begin preparing today, not through rituals, but through awareness, you will miss the test completely. And you will return, again and again. That is the lesson hidden for over 1,000 years. The death you fear is not the end. It is the mirror. And how you meet it depends on how you are living right now. Not in fear. Not in ignorance, but in clarity, in stillness, in freedom. Because the mind that shapes your world after death is the same one shaping your reality now. If you want to wake up after death, you must start waking up in life. The moment you die, everything changes, but not in the way you expect. Your heart stops, your body lies still, but your awareness remains. You feel weightless, detached, like you've just stepped out of a dream. There's no more pain, no breath, no heartbeat, yet something inside you is alive and conscious. You try to speak, try to return to your body, but nothing happens. A quiet realization dawns. You've left your physical form. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a journey few are prepared for. And it doesn't start with darkness. It starts with light. Then it happens. Without warning, a blinding light appears. It's not just bright, it's pure. It radiates through every part of you. It feels like truth, like home. The Tibetan Book of the Dead calls it the clear light of reality, the unfiltered, infinite nature of consciousness itself. It's not outside of you. It is you. This is your highest self, free from ego, free from form. If you recognize it and surrender completely, you dissolve into it. This is liberation, instant enlightenment, the end of suffering, the end of rebirth. But almost no one recognizes it. The light is overwhelming. It's unfamiliar. It doesn't look like anything you've known before. So instead of surrendering, the soul panics. It clings to identity, to memory, to unfinished stories. It hesitates, and hesitation is enough to break the moment. Instead of merging with truth, the soul pulls back. The chance is lost. The light begins to fade. And with that fear, the illusions begin. The soul begins to hear whispers, echoes of loved ones, fragments of voices, faint memories. The mind creates familiar places, comforting faces, scenes from the life just left behind. It's not real. None of it is. It's the mind resisting truth, trying to make sense of the unknown. It clings to what it understands, and in doing so, builds a prison out of comfort. The clear light disappears. The moment is over. The soul now enters the bardo, the in-between realm, where time and space collapse. And here, it begins to drift, pulled by memory and fear. Most souls never realize they had a chance. They never see the light again. They simply continue lost in visions, chasing echoes, spiraling toward rebirth. The Tibetan masters warned us. Liberation comes in the first moments after death. If you are not ready, you will miss it. Only those who've trained their minds through meditation, awareness, detachment can even recognize the light when it arrives. For everyone else, fear wins, and they fall, again. But the truth remains. The light is always there, and it is always you. As the clear light fades, the soul enters a realm unlike anything it has ever known. This is the bardo, the in-between. Time no longer moves in a straight line. Seconds stretch into eternity, while days vanish in an instant. Space twists and shifts like liquid. There are no walls, no sky, no ground, only a swirling dreamscape. The soul tries to find its bearings, but nothing is stable. Confusion sets in. This place doesn't follow the laws of the living world. It follows the mind. And in the bardo, mind is everything. Suddenly, the soul begins to see faces, hear voices, feel things it thought were gone. It sees its childhood home. It hears its mother's voice. It senses a religious figure it once prayed to. These visions feel real, almost too real. They offer comfort, familiarity, warmth. But they are not real. None of it is. These are projections. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches that everything seen in the bardo is shaped by the subconscious mind. The soul is not witnessing truth. It is witnessing memory, desire, and fear. These illusions don't just appear, they evolve. The more the soul interacts with them, the more vivid they become. The mother's voice becomes clearer. The familiar places gain color and detail. It feels like returning home, but it's not. It's a trapa, self-made illusion built from emotional attachment. The soul begins to lose its awareness, pulled deeper into a fantasy crafted by its own longing. It forgets it's dead. It forgets the light. It forgets the choice it once had. Religious figures, epigods, saints, angels. Some are loving, some are stern. But all of them are illusions too. They are born from belief systems carried through life. The soul sees what it expects. A Christian may see Jesus. A Buddhist may see a bodhisattva. But these figures are not there to save. They are reflections, mirrors, echoes of the soul's own understanding. And the more the soul gives them power, the more control they take. This is the first major test of the bardo. Will the soul see through the illusion, or will it be consumed by it? Most do not pass. Most become entangled in memories and visions. They chase voices, follow faces, and drift further from truth. The bardo is not evil, it is a mirror. And what you see in it is not reality, but yourself, your attachments, your fears, your unfinished stories. Only those who remember, those who remain aware, can break the illusion. The moment you realize that nothing is real, everything changes. The images collapse, the voices fade, the landscape dissolves, but awareness is rare. Most souls continue forward, believing they are alive, chasing shadows. And with every step, they move further from liberation and closer to rebirth. As the soul drifts deeper into the bardo, the scenery begins to shift. Gone are the comforting illusions of family and friends. In their place, radiant beings begin to appear, figures of divine beauty, glowing with light and peace. They don't speak in words, but their presence speaks volumes. Some resemble angels. Others look like ancient masters, or enlightened teachers. The soul feels awe, a deep sense of being seen, known, and loved. This is the first true test. Can the soul recognize what it's seeing? According to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, these beings are not separate entities. They are manifestations of the soul's highest consciousness. They are what you become when you are free from ego, fear, and illusion. If the soul sees them for what they truly are, reflections of its divine nature can merge with them instantly. That merging is liberation. It is the opportunity to escape the cycle of birth and death. But this opportunity comes only once, and it lasts only a moment. But most souls don't understand. They doubt. They fear. Who are these beings? The soul wonders, what do they want from me? The mind looks for answers, for labels, for something familiar. But this experience cannot be understood with logic. It requires surrender, not analysis. And the moment the soul begins to question, the images begin to change. The light dims, the faces distort, the peace begins to fade. This is the tragedy of hesitation. The soul had a chance to break free, but it let doubt steal it away. The divine forms do not punish, they simply fade. Their purpose is to invite, not force. When the invitation is declined, they disappear. The soul is left alone again, drifting deeper into illusion. Not because it was judged, but because it hesitated. The bardo is filled with these moments, instant opportunities, flashing gates to liberation. But they come and go without warning, and they don't wait. The soul must be ready, must be present, must let go. This was only the first test, and already most fail it. Not because they are evil, but because they hesitate. They think, they analyze, they fear, and so they fall. But even in this failure, there is no condemnation, only learning. The soul is not damned, it is delayed. It moves forward through the bardo, toward new visions, new tests. And if it remembers this moment, remembers that the light was real, that the chance was real, it may be more ready next time. Because in bardo, every moment matters, and every missed chance teaches the soul what it still needs to release. The light fades, the radiant beings dissolve into the darkness, and the soul is left in silence. Then, something shifts. The faces that once offered peace begin to twist. Gentle expressions morph into snarls. Beautiful forms grow claws, horns, and eyes that burn with rage. They scream, they charge, they multiply. The soul panics. This was supposed to be over. But now the true test begins, the test of fear. And it's not just frightening, it feels endless. There is no place to hide. These figures seem to attack, but nothing truly touches the soul. That's the paradox. No matter how terrifying they look, no harm is ever done. The Book of the Dead says, these are not demons. They are not enemies. They are shadows, projections of your own fear. What you refuse to face in life now stands before you. Pain, regret, shame. Every hidden thought now has form. And the more you fear them, the more they grow. Most souls run, they scream. They try to hide, but there's nowhere to go. The bardo responds not to panic, but to presence. The more the soul runs, the more the visions intensify. Shadows become beasts. Whispers become howls. The test is not survival. It is recognition. Can you see through the illusion? Can you remember this is a projection of your own mind? Few do. Most get lost in terror. And the illusions tighten their grip. But something miraculous happens when the soul stops. It doesn't fight. It doesn't run. It simply watches. The monsters freeze. Their faces flicker. The rage begins to fade. Why? Because illusions feed on fear, and without fear they collapse. This is the hidden key the ancient masters spoke of. You don't need to destroy anything. You just need to stop believing it's real. In that stillness, the nightmare begins to dissolve. Like smoke in sunlight, the horrors fade. The soul doesn't need to fight. It needs to be still. This is mastery, not through force, but through understanding. The moment you stop feeding fear, fear stops existing. The monsters vanish like mist. They were never enemies. They were mirrors. And now, they break. What's left is peace. And the soul moves forward, wiser, lighter, awake. This was the second test, and the lesson is this: fear is not real. It is a reflection of the self, magnified by attachment. If you can meet fear with presence, it loses power. If you recognize illusion, it dissolves. That is the secret hidden for centuries. Not to fight, but to see. And once you see, you are free. The soul now moves toward its next challenge, more prepared than ever before. The chaos fades. The monsters dissolve. The soul feels peace again briefly. Then, without warning, it is pulled backward. Not in space, but in time. It returns to its life not as memory, but as experience. Every moment is relived in vivid detail. The soul doesn't just sit, feels. It feels every choice, every word spoken, every action taken. But this time, it's not limited to its own view. It sees through the eyes of others. It feels what they felt. Every act of kindness echoes like light. A gentle word, a sacrifice unnoticed, a smile shared. The soul feels the ripple it caused, the warmth, the healing, the relief it gave. But it also feels the other side. A cruel word, a lie told, a promise broken. The soul experiences the pain it once ignored. There's no judgment, no jury, only reflection, only truth. And that truth cannot be escaped. There is no defending yourself here. No explaining, no rationalizing. You can't say, I was young, or I didn't mean it. None of that matters. You don't get to tell your story. You simply live it again. This is not punishment, it's revelation. The soul doesn't suffer because it's being punished. It suffers because, for the first time, it truly understands the impact it had. But not all souls feel agony. For some, this stage is beautiful. Those who lived with compassion, who gave more than they took, are bathed in peace. They feel the joy they created in others as if it were their own. Laughter echoes. Tears of gratitude wash over them. Every selfless act becomes a source of light. This is the reward not from a god, but from the truth itself. The truth sets you free, or it humbles you. For others, the weight is crushing. Not because they were evil, but because they never looked inward. They lived unaware of how their choices echoed. They pushed pain aside. In this mirror, it all returns. The book says this review conditions the soul for what comes next. If it clings to regret, shame, or pride, it is pulled back into the cycle. If it accepts without attachment, it moves forward. The mirror does not decide, it reflects. This stage ends not with judgment, but with clarity. The soul stands before itself, stripped of identity, stripped of excuses. It knows now what it was, what it gave, what it took. And from that knowledge comes the choice. To carry regret, and return, or to surrender, and rise. The great mirror fades. The soul stands changed. What it saw cannot be unseen. What it felt cannot be undone. But it is not the end. The next stage waits. The soul has seen everything, every mistake, every kindness, every consequence. And now, in the stillness that follows, it waits. But this stillness is not the end. It's the doorway to the final test. Subtle, at first whispers, scents, familiar echoes, then images, people you loved, places you cherished, faces that once brought joy. The pull is gentle, almost comforting, but it's a trap. The Book of the Dead says this is the most dangerous stage. The soul is not shown horrors anymore. It is shown what it loves. And that's why most fail. They reach for the familiar. A mother's voice, a lover's embrace, a place they longed to return to. But these aren't real. They're projections crafted by karma to draw the soul back into the cycle, back into a body, back into forgetting. This choice isn't loud. There's no voice saying choose now. It's subtle, silent, automatic. The moment the soul attaches through desire, fear, or longing, it's pulled in. The new life begins not with clarity, but with amnesia. The soul doesn't know it chose. It believes it just ... arrived. Birth seems like the beginning, but it's not. It's the continuation of forgetting. Those who aren't prepared don't even realize they've made a decision. They think life happens. but in truth, they chose it without knowing. The stronger the attachment, the faster the return. Longing is the thread, regret is the magnet. Karma doesn't force you back, your mind does. That's the final trap. You reincarnate, not because you're sentenced but because you reach. But for the few who are truly aware, this stage is liberation. They see the visions, they feel the pull, but they do not move. They remain centered, detached, watching with love, but without clinging. And in that stillness, the illusion collapses. The karmic threads break, the pull fades, and something else rises: freedom. Not a reward, not heaven, just freedom from the game entirely. This is the choice we all face, not in death, but now. Because if you don't train your mind in life, you won't have clarity in death. Awareness doesn't magically appear. It's built, cultivated. The soul that awakens in the final test is the soul that practiced letting go long before the body died. And that's the real secret. Death doesn't change you. It reveals you. Not everyone is lost. In the midst of illusion, a few remain still. They don't reach, they don't run, they recognize. While others are pulled into longing or fear, these souls simply watch. They know what's happening. They feel the same pull, but they don't react. They don't identify with the visions. And that changes everything. Awareness becomes the shield. Stillness becomes the key. And karma begins to loosen its grip. This isn't detachment out of numbness, it's clarity. They see the visions as reflections, not truth. A lover's voice, a childhood memory, a place that once brought joy. They smile at it, honor it, but they do not cling. This non-attachment is not cold. It's deeply loving, because they understand. To hold on is to return, and they're ready to let go, not with bitterness, but with grace. With no reaction, no fear, and no desire, the illusions lose their power. The karmic web unravels. The cords break. The soul is no longer tethered. What once pulled it in now passes like clouds. There is no struggle, no battle, just silence. Peace liberation doesn't explode, it unfolds. Gently, quietly, naturally, and the soul rises. Not toward heaven, but toward truth. Liberation is not a place. It's not a reward. It's not something given. It is simply the end of illusion. The soul doesn't go somewhere. It wakes up. It remembers what it is beyond name, beyond body, beyond story. It becomes pure awareness, limitless, still, eternal. No identity, no time, no need to be anything. This is the true escape, not from punishment, but from the dream. The world doesn't know these souls. They don't leave monuments. They don't seek praise. But they have done what very few ever will. They saw through the game. They passed the test. They remembered while others forgot. And in that remembrance, they broke free. No longer bound by story or form, they return not to life, but to source. This is not fantasy. It's possibility. It's the path every soul can walk, but few do, because it requires facing everything, letting go of everything. It requires awareness, not at the end, but now. The awakened don't wait for death. They live like they've already passed through it, and because of that they are already free. If this knowledge has existed for over 1,000 years, why haven't you heard of it before? Why did it take this long to surface? The answer is simple. It was hidden. Not because it was lost, but because it was dangerous. Dangerous to the systems built on fear. Dangerous to the institutions that needed people to obey. If everyone knew what really happens after death, everything would change. Religions told us there's heaven and hell, rewards and punishments, handed down by a divine judge. But the Tibetan Book of the Dead says otherwise. There's no external judgment, no angry God, no eternal fire, only your own mind, reflecting back at you. The light you embraced, the pain you caused, the truth you avoided. That's what you meet after death, not a savior, not a sentence, but yourself. If people realized this, they wouldn't live in fear. They wouldn't obey out of guilt. They wouldn't chase salvation. They'd seek truth, and that truth would make them ungovernable. You can't control people who no longer fear death. You can't manipulate those who understand their soul is free. That's why this knowledge was buried hidden in monasteries, censored by empires, dismissed as heresy. This isn't about rejecting spirituality, it's about reclaiming it, about realizing you don't need permission to awaken. You don't need a priest, a temple, or a ritual to remember who you are. Everything you need is already within you. The book doesn't give power, it reminds you that you already had it. And that's exactly what those in control never wanted you to know. For centuries, fear was used as a leash. Heaven dangled as a reward. Hell threatened as punishment. But what if there is no leash, no cage, no judgment? Just you own the weight of your choices. That would mean freedom. It would mean responsibility. And for many, that's even scarier than death itself. This is why the teachings were hidden. Not because they weren't true, but because they were too true. The kind of truth that burns through illusion, that dissolves control. The kind of truth that changes the way you live, the way you die, the way you see yourself. And now that you know it's your choice, will you forget, or will you wake up? The Bardo is not just a realm after death, it's here, right now. In this very moment, you are already in it. The illusions don't wait until your last breath. They surround you every day. The fame you chase, the money you cling to, the status you idolize, the fears that keep you silent. These are not just distractions, they are the same illusions that appear after death. The test has already begun. Just like in the afterlife, your mind here creates your reality. What you believe becomes what you see. What you fear becomes what you chase or avoid. The same illusions, fame, validation, control pull you deeper into forgetfulness. And every time you choose fear over truth, comfort over clarity, you reinforce the cycle. You don't have to die to meet the test. You're already taking it. This is why awareness matters, now not later. The soul that waits to wake up at the moment of death is already too late. Awareness is built through practice, through stillness, through presence, through courage to look at what is real. If you can recognize illusion while alive, you'll recognize it after death. But if you live asleep, chasing what fades, you'll die asleep. To end, the cycle continues. The truth is, death changes nothing. It only reveals what's already true. If you live in fear, you'll die in fear. If you live chasing illusion, you'll die clinging to it. But if you live with awareness, if you train your mind to see clearly, then death becomes a transition, not a trap. The Bardo becomes a passage, not a prison. And freedom becomes possible, because you've already begun to taste it in life. This is the invitation. Wake up now, not tomorrow. Not after tragedy, not when life slows down. Now see through the illusion, while it still feels real. Choose presence over distraction, truth over comfort, courage over fear. The test isn't waiting for you in some distant afterlife, it's here, in the way you speak, act, and choose every day. And the outcome isn't decided later, it's shaped right now. Most will forget this message. They'll scroll, they'll sleep, they'll wait. But some maybe you will remember. You'll feel the echo of something true, and that's the beginning. The Bardo is not a curse, it's a mirror. It reflects you, tests you, but also offers a doorway. And now that you've seen it, you can't pretend you haven't. The only question left is this: will you wake up?